A silver haze clings to the Nevada hills as the first shards of dawn cut through the night. Inside the Wild Spirit Mustang Sanctuary's birthing barn, the air is raw, sharp with cold, the silence broken only by the rough, rhythmic breathing of Luna, a rescued Mustang mare, her flanks trembling, eyes wide in the flicker of moonlight slicing through the dust-laden rafters. Dr. Sarah Chen stands at the threshold, hands braced against the stall's warped wood. She's delivered more than 300 foals in her life, but this morning gnaws at her nerves. There's something about the tension in Luna's muscles, the way the mare's breath hangs in the air. A note of urgency, a pulse beneath routine. Sarah moves with practiced calm, quietly instructing her assistant, Marcus, to ready the birthing kit. Marcus, usually quick with a joke, says nothing this time, eyes tracking every shift in Luna's posture. The hush feels like a held breath. A sudden contraction racks Luna. The foal emerges slowly, legs glistening, the afterbirth catching the weak moonlight. Then, all at once, the barn fills with the tiny, raw cry of new life. Sarah kneels, steady hands clearing the foal's nostrils, brushing his damp muzzle. There's a shock of color in the colt's coat, silver dapples swirling into deep brown, impossibly vivid against the straw. Marcus whistles, low, as the foal struggles, wobbles, then stands almost instantly, long legs trembling but certain. "That's fast," he mutters, voice edged with awe. But Sarah is frozen, not by the colt's strange beauty, but by the gaze that meets hers. The newborn locks eyes with her, unblinking. For a heartbeat, it's as if the world hushes, suspended in that silent exchange. Sarah feels studied, not by an animal, but by something other, some old intelligence flickering behind that gaze. The sensation unsettles her, pushes against the boundaries of everything she believes about animals, science, and herself. The colt, Sir, Marcus whispers the name without knowing why, moves to his mother, nurses with purposeful urgency, then turns his attention to the humans clustered at the edge of the stall. His nostrils flare, ears flick, as if he's taking a mental tally, sorting friend from stranger. Word spreads quickly through the sanctuary. Staff wander in, drawn by the low hum of something extraordinary. Even the older wranglers, folks who've seen every kind of birth in the wild, pause at the threshold, their skepticism dissolving into quiet wonder as they watch the foal. The usual barn chatter falters. Instead, there's a sense of ceremony, as if everyone present is witnessing an event they'll recount for years, a story whose meaning is only beginning to unfold. Sarah, careful not to betray her unease, begins her post-birth routine, checking Luna's vitals, examining the colt's limbs. But CER keeps watching her. It's not fear, not even curiosity. It's intent. Later, in the privacy of her office, Sarah will find herself replaying that first stare, asking herself, "What exactly did I see in him?" She steps out into the gray morning, boots crunching frost, and tries to shake off the strangeness. But already, rumors are swirling in the staff lounge, that the new colt stood on his own faster than any they'd seen, that he seems to listen when spoken to, that he recognizes faces after a single meeting. Someone half jokes that CER must be a reincarnated soul, some wild spirit come back to test their understanding of what's possible. Sarah squashes the talk, insisting that all foals are unique, that science demands evidence. But alone, she feels a tremor of doubt. After years of rational explanations, she senses a crack opening in her certainty, a space where awe seeps in. The day passes in small moments, CR standing close to Luna, then venturing toward the stall door, sniffing at the latch with more focus than any newborn should possess. staff members pausing to snap photos, sending texts to friends and family. A gentle hush falling each time Sarah's gaze lingers on a human face. Night returns. Sarah walks the rows of stalls, flashlight beam catching motes of dust, her mind restless. She lingers at Sarah's stall. The foal, still awake, meets her gaze once more, and for an instant Sarah feels almost understood. She thinks of the city she left behind, the pain she's witnessed, the skepticism she's worn like armor, and yet here in a frozen barn in the Nevada dawn, something has begun to change. Not a miracle, she tells herself, not yet. But perhaps the start of a new kind of story, one that asks her to risk believing in the impossible. And as she turns to leave, CER gives a soft, low nicker, one that sounds impossibly like a greeting or a promise. 3 days after Sarah's birth, a sharp winter wind scours the sanctuary, rattling loose tin and sending flurries of pale dust along the barns. The world outside is all faded sage and brittle grass, but inside, the air hums with the warm smell of hay and the faint electric charge that's settled over the staff since the colt's arrival. Sarah rises early, nerves taut with her usual restlessness. She makes her way to the foaling barn, boot soles thumping softly. As she approaches, she hears the muffled laughter of Marcus and the low rumble of Gloria, the oldest wrangler. The stall doors are latched tight, especially Kerr's, now secured with a complex puzzle lock meant for adult Mustangs known to escape. The sanctuary has a reputation for clever horses. Over the years, they've faced escape artists, latch pickers, even a gelding who learned to roll barrels to reach apples. But no one expects intelligence from a 3-day-old foal. Sarah greets the others, voice still rough from sleep. She reaches for Sir's stall, already bracing for his now familiar stare, but stops short. The heavy bolt dangles loose, swinging on its hinge. Inside, Sir stands by the door, head tipped in patient curiosity, as if he's been waiting for someone to notice. Gloria gives a sharp whistle. "Did you leave that open, Doc?" Sarah shakes her head, a frown knitting her brow. "No way. I double-checked after evening rounds." They reset the latch, watching as CER moves closer, studying every motion with unsettling focus. His ears twitch, eyes flick from Gloria's hands to Sarah's, and back again. Marcus, always game for a challenge, kneels to show Syar the locking mechanism. 1 bolt, a sliding bar, and a coated clasp meant to stump even the most resourceful adult horses. "See, little guy?" Marcus says, locking it with an exaggerated flourish. "You'd need thumbs to open this." The 3 step back. They watch. Syar does not hesitate. He stretches his delicate muzzle through the bars, lips questing with surgical precision. In under a minute, he bumps the clasp, slides the bolt, and nudges the bar free. The door swings open. A stunned silence fills the barn, broken only by the slow, incredulous exhale from Gloria. "Well, I'll be—" Sarah feels a chill trace her spine. She cycles through explanations, chance, luck, mimicry, but nothing fits. CER relocks the door, pausing to peer at each human, as if asking, "Is this the game? Do you understand?" For the rest of the day, CER becomes a quiet storm at the center of the sanctuary. Handlers gather in 2s and 3s, inventing new puzzles, locking and unlocking his door, changing the sequence. Every time CER solves it, sometimes after careful study, sometimes in a single attempt. It's not just the speed, it's the deliberation, the way he seems to anticipate which part of the lock needs attention next. Sarah, committed to skepticism, brings out her notepad. She sketches the lock, marks the time, notes the sequence of Chair's actions. Marcus films 1 attempt on his phone. The video later goes viral among staff. CR, ears forward, tail swishing in satisfaction as the bolt slides free. But it's not just the lock. Throughout the day, CER watches everything. He tracks Gloria's routines, mimics the motion of her feeding scoop with a stray piece of straw. He predicts when Sarah will return for her next check. When a young volunteer, Jesse, fumbles with a water bucket, CER nudges it upright with his nose, almost like an act of helpfulness. By afternoon, rumors of a genius horse are echoing across the sanctuary. Some staff joke about enrolling CER in college. Others, more quietly, begin to feel the weight of something they can't quite explain. Sarah catches snippets in the break room. He's not just smart, he's aware. It's like he's reading us. You ever seen anything like it, Doc? Sarah tries to keep her responses measured, but she can't quite mask the spark of wonder threading through her rational mind. She brings up animal cognition studies, cites famous problem-solving elephants, clever corvids, but the comparisons feel thin, inadequate. This is different. This is close. Marcus, grinning, suggests they call in Marcus's college buddy, a behavioral scientist at the university. Sarah demurs. She wants more evidence, more data, not a parade of gawkers. Still, she agrees to run some basic cognition tests. Pattern blocks, treat mazes, bells for attention. CER solves them all, sometimes before Sarah has even finished setting the scene. The staff gathers after closing hours, drawn by a magnetism they can't name. They watch CER rest his chin on Luna's back, then trot to the stall door the moment someone approaches, as if he's keeping tabs on their routines. When Sarah lingers by the fence after dusk, CER approaches, silent, and stands beside her, matching her breathing with his own. That night, Sarah lies awake, staring at the cracked ceiling of her cabin. She tries to catalog her thoughts, excitement, confusion, a budding sense of responsibility. She thinks of the stall lock, the puzzles, the way CER meets her gaze with that bright, unwavering stare. He's not simply reacting, she realizes. He's making choices. Outside, the desert wind moans. Somewhere in the barns, CER, barely 3 days old, is dreaming beneath the vast Nevada sky, already a mystery, already rewriting the rules of what a horse can be. By the end of Sarah's first week, the sanctuary is no longer a sleepy outpost tucked away in the Nevada hills. Word of the genius Mustang foal has trickled beyond the barbed wire fences, winding through university hallways and animal behavior forums like wildfire. Every staff member senses it, a subtle shift in the air, a collective holding of breath. Sarah tries to shield CER and Luna from too much attention, but she knows she can't keep the outside world at bay for long. It's no surprise when, one brisk morning, Dr. Elena Rodriguez arrives. She steps from her rental car in pressed jeans and a Patagonia vest, her eyes sharp and skeptical. Rodriguez is world-famous in animal cognition circles, a scientist known for debunking hoaxes and exposing miracle animals as products of clever training or wishful thinking. She barely glances at the rustic scenery. Her gaze is all business, a flicker of impatience beneath her professionalism. Sarah meets her with guarded courtesy. They exchange the standard pleasantries, but both women know what's at stake. Rodriguez is here to prove Chair's feats are nothing more than clever chance. Elena sets up in the research barn, hauling in crates of equipment, video recorders, scent markers, collapsible mazes, a set of colored objects and treat dispensers. She watches CER as he circles his stall, head held high, eyes flicking from Luna to the unfamiliar faces and gadgets. Sarah observes silently from the sidelines, torn between pride and anxiety. The first test is a simple one, maze navigation. Elena constructs a winding route out of panels and hay bales, placing treats only at the correct exits. Marcus, tasked with distracting the foal, walks Luna past the barn's far end to prevent CR from simply following his mother's scent. Staff gather quietly by the observation windows. CER stands at the maze's mouth, pausing, not confused but attentive, mapping the space with a calm intensity. Then, with precise steps, he moves forward, ignoring false turns and heading straight for the treat. He pauses only to glance at Sarah through the plexiglass, as if to ask, "Is this what you wanted?" Elena raises an eyebrow, but she's not satisfied. She resets the maze, changes the location of the treats, rearranges the walls. This time, CER watches her hands closely, then waits until she's finished before entering. Again, he solves the challenge instantly, nosing aside a decoy bucket to reveal the hidden apple. For the next hour, Rodriguez throws every challenge she can devise at CER. Object selection based on shape and color. A series of bells he must ring in sequence to receive a reward. Hidden food tasks using only scent or memory. In every test, CER not only completes the task, but often anticipates what's expected, sometimes beating Elena to the punch by moving toward a target before she gives the cue. But it's the emotional awareness that leaves the deepest mark. During a break, Elena accidentally startles a skittish yearling in the adjacent stall. CER immediately turns, approaches the partition, and nuzzles the trembling horse through the bars, soft and patient, until the yearling's shaking eases. The scientists watch, notebooks forgotten. Sarah feels the prickle of something old and hopeful, the possibility that true intelligence is inseparable from empathy. Rodriguez tries one last test, self-recognition. She places a gentle smear of safe-colored paste on Sir's forehead while he nibbles hay. Then she wheels a large, polished mirror into the stall. CR approaches, ears flicking. He studies his reflection with startling focus, then raises a hoof to rub the spot above his eyes. Staff murmur, shocked. Few animals recognize themselves in mirrors. CER does. He turns, spots Rodriguez, and seems to consider her. No fear, just interest. At the end of the day, Elena gathers the staff in the break room. Her professional facade has softened, her eyes tired but alive with excitement. "What you have here," she begins, "is not a fluke. It's a paradigm shift." Sarah lets out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The staff, giddy with relief, swap stories about Sir's feats, his empathy, his uncanny awareness, his ability to comfort horses and humans alike. Marcus, usually irreverent, grows serious. I think he knows when people need him. It's not just problem-solving, it's connection. Elena takes a moment to speak to Sarah in private, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "You understand, this will change everything. If we're right, if this isn't an anomaly, then CER isn't just special. He's rewriting what we think is possible for animal minds." Sarah nods, feeling both exhilarated and frightened. She knows what attention like this can bring. Fame, money, ethical questions she's not sure she's ready to face. But when she returns to Sir's stall, she finds him waiting, calm and steady. He touches her hand with his nose, his gaze deep, a silent reassurance. That night, as the Nevada sky spills with stars, Sarah stands alone by the fence. She thinks about the world that will soon descend on their sanctuary, the reporters, the scientists, the skeptics. But in this brief moment, before the flood, she allows herself a small measure of hope. Maybe, just maybe, what she's witnessing isn't just a curiosity. Maybe it's the start of a new story for all of them. Spring comes quietly to the Nevada hills, first in shy sprigs of green along the fence lines, then in a rush of color, a promise that, even in harsh places, something tender can take root. After the swirl of scientists, cameras, and whispering excitement, the sanctuary settles into a quieter rhythm. For once, time seems to slow, every small detail drawing sharper into focus. Dr. Sarah Chen leans into these days, craving something gentle to offset the world's loud demands. It's in this lull that Sarah finds herself observing not just CR, but the subtle changes he brings to the sanctuary. The initial frenzy of discovery has faded, replaced by something deeper and harder to describe. A web of wordless connection weaving between horses and humans. Sarah, who's always kept her heart guarded behind science and professionalism, now watches herself soften at the edges. She is both scientist and witness, chronicler and participant. CER spends his mornings exploring the pastures, legs still coltish, but his movements deliberate, almost meditative. He visits each horse in the herd, pausing to nuzzle an old gelding, sidestepping gently around skittish yearlings, pressing his head to the flank of a mare grieving the loss of her foal. There's no drama to these moments, no show, no spectacle, just presence. Sometimes, Sarah stands by the split-rail fence, hands shoved deep in her pockets, watching Sarah's small acts of kindness with a feeling she hasn't let herself name in years. Hope. The staff begin to notice too. Gloria, who's worked with Mustangs longer than Sarah has been alive, comments one afternoon, "That little colt's got an old soul." Marcus, always quick with a theory, tries to quantify Sarah's empathy, scribbling notes on how distressed horses calm in his presence. "It's not just the way he solves puzzles," Marcus muses. "It's like he senses what every animal needs, sometimes even before we do." One afternoon, as wind rattles the barn, CER visits Delilah, the sanctuary's oldest resident, a blind, skeletal mare rescued from an auction pen 2 winters ago. Delilah stands alone in the far pasture, often lost in her own darkness, refusing touch from most humans, but CER approaches her slowly, pausing every few steps, hoofbeats light as breath. He gives a low nicker. Delilah lifts her head, ears flicking to catch the sound. CR steps closer, nose almost brushing her shoulder, then stops. After a long moment, Delilah relaxes, her tense neck softening as she leans, just barely, into Sir's warmth. Sarah watches from a distance, unable to look away. In all her years, she's never seen Delilah let another horse so close. Not even Luna. Something in the way CER moves, his patience, his lack of demand, creates a space where even an old, wounded soul can risk connection. At feeding time, CER waits his turn, never bullying the younger foals or rushing the staff. Instead, he finds moments to nuzzle Marcus's sleeve or to brush his muzzle against Sarah's hand when her thoughts seem far away. It's always at just the right time, when someone is tired or anxious or carrying invisible burdens. Sarah's touch is wordless reassurance. These small gestures accumulate until the sanctuary itself seems changed. Horses that once fought over water share quietly. Volunteers, even those new to horses, feel strangely at ease in Sir's presence. It's as if the air itself has shifted, thicker somehow, with the possibility of healing. On a slow Sunday, Sarah allows herself a rare indulgence. She takes a notebook to the pasture, sits beneath the shade of a twisted juniper, and simply observes. She sketches Sir's movements, the rise and fall of his breath, the way his ears flick at distant birdsong. She writes down a question she's never dared ask aloud. What if empathy is the highest form of intelligence? That evening, As dusk stains the sky lavender and gold, Sarah lingers by Kerr's stall. The barn is quiet, the world soft around the edges. Sar steps forward, lays his head gently against her chest, and breathes, slow, deep, grounding. For the first time in years, Sarah lets herself be fully present, all defenses down. She feels the tremor of awe, the beginning of belief not just in science but in something wider, a faith in connection, in moments that defy easy explanation. Later, she confides in Marcus, voice low. I think he's changing us. Not just the way we work, but the way we see each other, the way we see ourselves. Marcus nods, understanding. He's not a miracle, he says, echoing Sarah's old refrain, but he's something close. As night folds over the sanctuary, Sarah lies awake listening to the quiet sounds of horses breathing, the creak of the barn settling. She thinks of all she's lost, and all she might risk opening herself to again. She's beginning to understand. Healing doesn't come in lightning flashes or miracles. Sometimes it arrives on soft hooves, in moments so gentle you barely notice the world has changed. A haze of late spring heat presses against the sanctuary, the days stretching out, heavy and slow. The horses graze in the open pastures, swishing their tails lazily, savoring the first flush of sweet grass. The sky is a hard, endless blue. Yet underneath this tranquility, a tension hums, a sense that the calm can't last, that something unseen is shifting. It happens on an ordinary afternoon. Sarah is inside the research barn, deep in a stack of reports. Outside, the staff is scattered, repairing a broken fence near the east paddock. CR, now taller, more confident, grazes alongside Luna at the far edge of the sanctuary. Marcus, exhausted from a string of long nights, lies dozing in the shade. No one notices Estella, a wild bay mare, as she wanders too close to the overgrown north fence line, where a tangle of forgotten barbed wire lies hidden beneath the sage. A sharp, panicked whinny rings out, slicing through the afternoon. CER lifts his head, muscles tense, ears swiveling toward the sound. In a flash, he bolts, hooves pounding, mane streaming behind him. He races across the pasture, urgency in every stride. Estella is caught. The old barbed wire has snared her back leg, the sharp metal biting into flesh. She thrashes, panic rising, eyes rolling white. CER arrives, circles her, and nuzzles her neck with a quieting gentleness. Estella, trembling, calms just enough to stop struggling. But CER doesn't stay. He spins and takes off, galloping straight toward the humans. Sarah, startled by the racket, steps out of the barn in time to see CER racing full speed, nostrils flaring, head tossing as if trying to speak. He stops just short of her, whinnies again, louder, sharper. He stamps, paces, then dashes a few paces, looking back, clearly beckoning. Sarah freezes. For a heartbeat, the world narrows to that exchange. Sarah's insistent gaze, the frantic energy radiating off him. Something's wrong, she mutters, heart kicking up. She grabs the radio, calls out to Marcus and Gloria. Follow Sarah, now! CR leads the charge, racing back the way he came, looking over his shoulder to be sure the humans are following. They reach Estella in moments. The mare stands frozen, blood beginning to soak the fur above her hoof. Marcus drops to his knees, voice gentle, soothing Estella as he examines the snare. Sarah works quickly, slicing through the wire with a multi-tool, hands steady even as her pulse roars in her ears. Estella sags with relief, her breathing ragged but steadier. CER stands by, watching every move, nose twitching with worry. When Sarah finally frees the injured mare, CR steps forward, nuzzling Estella with a kind of pride, like he knows what's just happened. "Doc," Marcus says quietly. He knew. He understood she was in trouble before any of us did. Sarah nods, tears prickling at the edges of her vision. She has seen plenty of animals react to distress, but nothing like this. No foal, no matter how smart, has ever summoned help so intentionally or shown such unwavering empathy. They walk Estella carefully back to the barn. CER paces alongside her the whole way, matching her limping stride step for step, lowering his head as if to reassure her that she's not alone. The other horses watch from a distance, something reverent in the air. For the first time, even the most skeptical staff begin to believe Kair's gifts go beyond intelligence, into something more profound, something soulful. Later, when the adrenaline has faded and Estella is bandaged and safe, Sarah finds herself alone in the barn, hands shaking. She remembers all the times she's kept her heart closed, all the years she's refused to hope for miracles. Now, in the face of Chair's compassion, she feels those old walls crumbling. She lets herself cry. Tears of awe, gratitude, and a kind of quiet grief for all the suffering she's witnessed that went unheeded. CR finds her there. He approaches, soft steps echoing in the dim barn. He presses his forehead to her shoulder, stands quietly, breathing with her. The gesture is so intentional, so perfectly timed, that Sarah surrenders to it. She lets herself feel the truth she's always resisted. There are mysteries science can't measure, truths that live in moments of kindness, in bonds that cross every language. In the days that follow, the story spreads, first through the staff, then through visitors and volunteers. People come to the sanctuary, not just to see the famous genius Mustang, but to witness the foal who saved another's life. They watch as CER continues to care for Estella, checking on her with gentle persistence, alerting staff if she seems unwell. For Sarah, everything changes. Her clinical detachment softens. She allows herself to wonder, to believe, not just in Sarah's extraordinary mind, but in the healing power of compassion itself. For the first time in years, she hopes not for a miracle, but for a world where empathy is enough. And in the soft dusk of another Nevada evening, as CER stands watch over the herd, Sarah feels her own heart opening, finally, quietly, to the possibility of being changed. By midsummer, the Nevada air crackles with heat, drawing a restless tension across the sanctuary. It starts small, a distant smell of smoke on the wind, a shimmer on the horizon that doesn't fade with dusk. The staff work with one eye on the sky, half distracted, as if everyone senses something gathering beyond the edges of the ordinary. Sarah wakes every morning to the relentless sun, the sky already tinged with a faint orange haze. Mornings are quiet, almost fragile. The horses graze in uneasy clusters, flanks twitching at every unfamiliar sound. Even the birds seem wary, their calls sharper, more fleeting. CR, usually so calm, grows restless, his gaze sweeping the hills, his body tense as he scans the parched pastures. One afternoon, as Sarah finishes checking Estella's healing leg, a sharp gust rattles the barn doors. Marcus enters, dust streaked across his brow, worry creasing his face. "You smell that?" he asks. The scent of smoke is stronger now, no longer a suggestion, but a warning. By evening, staff gather in the main cabin, eyes flicking to the emergency protocols taped on the fridge. Wildfires are always a risk this time of year, but most burn out before they reach the sanctuary. Still, Sarah feels a knot of worry tightening with every weather report, every radio update about fires flickering along the distant ridges. The next morning, CER paces the fence line, ears pricked toward the west. The herd shadows his movements, uneasy, as if they've chosen him as their barometer. Sarah notices Serre's agitation, the way he circles the pastures, nickering to the younger foals, standing sentinel at the gate long after the others have drifted to shade. When Marcus approaches to refill water troughs, CER plants himself squarely in the path, blocking his way, then bolts toward the north boundary, pausing, waiting, insisting the humans follow. Marcus, frustrated, shakes his head. He's been like this all day. Won't settle, keeps checking the hills. Gloria, ever pragmatic, shrugs. Maybe he's just picking up on our nerves. But Sarah is not convinced. That night, she walks the perimeter alone, the air charged, cicadas buzzing a little too loudly. As she rounds the bend near the wild rose bushes, CER emerges from the darkness, shadow merging with moonlight. He falls into step beside her, his body pressed close, head low but alert. Sarah feels a ripple of fear, rational but undeniable. The world seems thinner, as if a single spark could ignite it all. Back at the barn, staff pore over evacuation plans. There's a debate. Do they prep the trailers, move the herd to the lower valley, or wait for clearer signs? Some argue it's just a precaution. Others remember the fires of past years and the panic that followed. The sanctuary's founder, a wiry old woman named Jeanne, insists they can't overreact. These hills have their own logic, she says. Best to trust the animals. Still, tension mounts. Each day the smoke on the horizon thickens. Ash drifts onto the pasture, settling on Serre's silver-dappled coat. The wind grows hot and wild, swirling eddies that scatter the horses and send staff scrambling for cover. Even the dogs hide under the porches, eyes wide. Sarah tries to project calm, but her nerves are frayed. She spends her nights reviewing evacuation routes, marking maps, double-checking supply lists. In rare quiet moments, she stands in Serre's stall, running her hand along his neck, drawing comfort from his presence. Sometimes CR leans into her, breathing slow and deep, as if urging her to listen, to feel what he feels, the pressure, the urgency, the coming storm. One evening, as dusk blurs the world to charcoal, a dry lightning storm flickers over the western ridge. Thunder rolls in the distance, echoing down the valley. CR paces the barn, restless, eyes wide. The staff gather outside, watching as the first sparks ignite. Tiny wildfires scattered along the far hills. The sanctuary holds its breath. Sarah's voice is steady as she issues orders. Trailer doors unlatched, halters at the ready, emergency kits packed and loaded. But inside, she feels a chill that has nothing to do with the night air. For the first time, she's not certain their preparations will be enough. As darkness falls, CER stands at the highest point of the pasture, silhouetted against the distant orange glow. The horses cluster behind him, uneasy but trusting. Sarah watches from the gate, heart thundering. She senses that CER knows something none of them do, that he feels the fire's approach not just in scent or sound, but in his bones. A single, jagged bolt of lightning splits the sky, illuminating the sanctuary in stark white. In that instant, Sarah sees CER lift his head, eyes catching the light, gaze fierce and unwavering, a silent vow to protect the herd, whatever comes. The night grows heavier, filled with the scent of smoke and the whispered tension of a world on the brink. The humans wait, hoping they're ready. The horses wait, trusting CR. Sarah waits, watching the horizon, her faith balanced on the edge of fear and hope. The Silverado fire arrives in the night, sudden and relentless, a living wall of flame devouring sagebrush and juniper, hurling embers across the black Nevada sky. It starts with a distant glow, then a roar, then chaos. By midnight, the wind changes, pushing the inferno toward the sanctuary faster than any forecast dared to warn. Sarah jerks awake to the shrill blare of the emergency radio and the acrid taste of smoke already thick in the air. Outside, the horizon pulses orange and red, flickering shadows leaping across the fields. Within minutes, staff scramble in the half-light, faces streaked with sweat and ash, voices taut with fear. The evacuation plan they'd practiced now feels suddenly flimsy against the violence of real fire. Horses scream and stampede, slamming against gates and fencing in blind panic. Sarah's hands shake as she fumbles with halters, shouting for Marcus, for Gloria, for anyone who can help. The heat presses in, intense, suffocating, alive. Sparks tumble from the sky, igniting dry tufts of grass at their feet. "We have to move, now!" Marcus yells above the din. But everything starts to unravel. The loading area clogs with terrified horses, the trailers only half open. Smoke blinds the handlers. The younger staff freeze. Someone cries out. Timothy, the shy new volunteer lost in the dark behind the research barn. And then, through the chaos, CER appears, head held high, eyes fierce, utterly calm. He whinnies, sharp and clear, cutting through panic. It's not just a sound, it's a command. The herd pauses, just for a breath, as CER plunges forward, nudging Luna and Estella toward the main gate, then looping back to collect the yearlings bunched against the fence. CER moves with an intelligence and presence that's uncanny, herding, guiding, circling back for stragglers. He blocks a panicked colt from bolting the wrong direction, then dashes toward the north field, where Delilah, the blind mare, stands rooted in terror. Sarah spots CIR racing toward Delilah, her own heart in her throat. Flames curl along the ridge, the heat dizzying. CR arrives at Delilah's side, pressing his body against hers, nickering softly. She startles, then feels his warmth, his steady presence. Sir guides her step by step toward the sound of Sarah's voice, slow, deliberate, never rushing her into danger. When Delilah stumbles, Seer stops and waits, shielding her from drifting embers with his own body. Meanwhile, Sarah and Marcus corral the other horses into the waiting trailers, but the herd resists, panicked and scattered. CER returns again and again, herding small groups toward safety, blocking escape routes that lead back toward the fire. He meets Sarah's gaze, and for a split second she understands. He's reading the danger, calculating, making decisions no human could. Suddenly, Sarah hears Timothy's faint cry over the roar of the blaze. Without a word, CER bolts into the smoky dark, disappearing behind the barn. Sarah follows, lungs burning. She finds Seer standing between Timothy and a burning fence post, shielding the boy from the worst of the heat. Timothy clings to Sarah's mane, his fear replaced by awe. Together, Sarah and CAR lead Timothy back to the others. Time fractures in the heat and confusion. Horses are loaded, frantic, sweating, but alive. As Marcus swings the last trailer door shut, Sarah counts and recounts, panic spiking until she sees Sir, muddy and smoke-streaked, standing at the back, eyes scanning for stragglers. Only when the last horse is aboard does CER allow himself to be led away. The escape is desperate and ragged. The staff drive the trailers through blinding smoke, flames licking at the roadside. CER rides in the final trailer, pressed against Luna and Delilah, his body tense but unafraid. Sarah's truck leads the convoy, headlights slicing the darkness, every mile a prayer. They reach the lower valley at dawn, exhausted, battered, but whole. As the sun rises, painting the smoke-stained sky with soft gold, Sarah takes stock. Every horse is safe. Every human is accounted for, not a single life lost. The staff gather in the pale morning light, silent, shaken, unable to process what they've just survived. It's Gloria who breaks the quiet first, tears streaking her ash-covered cheeks. "It was him," she whispers, voice cracking. "Saar did it. He saved us." Sarah doesn't argue. She turns to Sir, meets his steady, ancient gaze, and lets herself feel the fullness of what's happened. Not just the relief, but the awe. Sir walks among the horses, calming them with gentle touches, checking on each member of the herd, his movements measured and sure. The fire has scarred the land, blackened the horizon, and stolen so much. But in its wake, something new has taken root. A faith, not in luck or routine, but in the extraordinary. Sarah's scientific mind reels at the impossibility of it all, but her heart, battered and sore, believes. As the sanctuary's survivors cluster together, horses, humans, one wild Mustang colt at the center, Sarah understands what CIR has given them. Not just survival, but the courage to trust in something larger, to hope, to endure. And as CER stands at the edge of the valley, his silver dapples glinting in the newborn sun, Sarah realizes the sanctuary has been forever changed. Not by disaster, but by the quiet, unshakable leadership of a horse who refused to leave anyone behind. The wildfire finally burns itself out, leaving the Nevada hills scorched and silent, the earth a patchwork of blackened scars and raw beginnings. The sanctuary returns, battered but unbroken, to a land forever changed. The story of the evacuation, the miraculous survival, and the wild Mustang that led his herd to safety travels farther than any of them could have imagined. News crews are the first to arrive, their vans kicking up trails of dust as they crowd the narrow road. Reporters from Reno, then Los Angeles, then New York and London descend on the sanctuary. Satellite trucks and drones hover above the pastures, beaming images of Sir's silver-dappled coat and solemn gaze to millions. Headlines race across screens. Mustang hero saves herd from inferno. Is this the world's smartest horse? The sanctuary's phone rings day and night. Universities call, offering grants and proposals. Corporate research labs dangle million-dollar contracts, promising breakthroughs in animal cognition, robotics, and AI if only they can study SIR. Emails pour in from scientists, skeptics, and fans, some genuine, others hungry for a piece of the miracle. Inside the staff cabin, the atmosphere is tense. Sarah sits at the kitchen table, sleep-deprived, a mug of cold coffee trembling in her hand. Marcus paces near the window, watching the parade of visitors in the parking lot. Gloria answers questions from a documentary crew, her eyes wary. Divisions surface. Some staff, worn out by years of financial struggle, argue that letting CAR be studied, especially for a short stint in a university lab, could fund the sanctuary for decades. Others, fiercely protective, insist that Ser's place is with his herd, not in captivity, no matter how prestigious the research or how generous the offer. Sarah feels the weight of responsibility settle like a stone in her chest. She listens as Marcus makes the case for ethical, on-site research, collaborating with universities but refusing to remove CER from his home. He's not a lab animal, Marcus says, voice tight with conviction. He's a being. We owe him dignity. But not everyone agrees. The board of directors holds emergency meetings, arguing deep into the night. Even John, the sanctuary's founder, is torn, grateful for survival, desperate for resources, unwilling to see CR exploited. Meanwhile, CR seems immune to the chaos. He moves quietly through the recovering pastures, checking on his herd, his gentle presence steadying horses and humans alike. When camera crews approach, CR holds his ground, neither afraid nor eager, simply present. Sometimes, in the golden hour before dusk, Sarah finds him standing at the edge of the burnt hills, staring into the distance, as if remembering what was lost and measuring what remains. One afternoon, a university team arrives, led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez. She insists that any study be conducted in the sanctuary on CHER's terms. The staff agrees, but the tension remains. Cameras and notebooks follow CER everywhere. Journalists seek a soundbite, a simple miracle they can package for the world. Sarah shields CER as best she can, carefully choosing what to share and what to protect. In a rare moment of quiet, Sarah sits alone with CER in the shade of a half-burned juniper. She confides in him, voice low and unsteady. "Everyone wants something from you, CER. They call it science, but it feels like taking. I don't know how to protect you, and I don't know if I should try." CER listens in his way, still, patient, unjudging. He nuzzles Sarah's hand, a soft reminder that connection is not always control, that trust sometimes means letting go. For the first time, Sarah wonders if her own need to protect CER is simply another form of possession. That evening, the staff holds a final meeting under the bruised Nevada sky. Marcus speaks for the group. "We can't let him become an experiment. If we do, we betray everything this sanctuary stands for. We need to find a way to learn from CER without caging him." Sarah finds her voice steady but vulnerable. "CER taught us what real intelligence is: empathy, responsibility, the courage to care. If we reduce him to a data point, we lose the heart of what makes him special. We serve him, not the other way around." A hush falls. Even the board members, those most desperate for financial rescue, find themselves swayed by Sarah's conviction and the example CER sets every day. The decision is made. CER will remain at the sanctuary. Research, if it happens, will respect his freedom and the dignity of every horse. The sanctuary will open its doors to scientists and the public, but always on CER's terms. News spreads. Some donors withdraw, others flood in. Letters arrive from children, from survivors of disaster, from people who see in CER's story a glimmer of hope. And in the soft, uncertain aftermath, Sarah realizes something has shifted within herself. Where once she believed only in hard boundaries, she now sees the power and necessity of trust. As dusk falls, CER leads the herd through the charred hills, new shoots of grass already breaking through the ash. Sarah stands at the fence, her heart split open by gratitude and uncertainty. She understands now. Leadership is not about control, but about believing in the possibility of healing, in animals, in the land, and in herself. The Nevada summer yields to a softer autumn. Wind carries the scent of char and sage, but the hillsides, once black and lifeless, now show faint green blushes of recovery. The world's attention on the sanctuary fades only a little, lingering like the aftertaste of smoke. Yet something in the rhythm of life here has changed forever. The wild spirit Mustang sanctuary stands at the threshold of a new era. Not only has it survived catastrophe, but it's become a beacon, a place where people travel from far and wide, not just to gawk at CER, but to learn what it means to listen, to respect, to belong. Researchers, teachers, families, and those who carry old wounds in their hearts arrive daily. The air is laced with hope and caution. Thanks to Sarah's stubborn insistence and Marcus's tireless advocacy, the sanctuary is chosen as the site for the world's first ethical research center dedicated to animal intelligence and healing. The buildings are simple, A few converted barns and a scattering of shade tents where scientists and students gather, always outside the fences, always on the horses' terms. CER remains with his herd, his presence a steady pulse that shapes the day. He is no longer a curiosity, he is a leader. Each morning, he checks the boundary lines, then circles through the pastures, pausing with a gentle nudge for horses who hesitate at the edge of the group. He watches over the old and the very young, intervenes when disputes threaten to turn rough, stands beside those who tremble at thunder. The research, carefully designed, is subtle, observation more than intrusion. Scientists watch as CER comforts the anxious, seems to mediate between rivals, demonstrates feats of memory and problem-solving. But it is the everyday healing that leaves the deepest impression. Again and again, CER chooses kindness over dominance, patience over force. He is the center the sanctuary orbits around, the bridge between species. Then one day, a family arrives with a young boy named Timothy. He is 8, slender and watchful, rarely speaking. His parents explain quietly that Timothy is autistic and has not spoken outside his home for almost a year. They've come hoping for a miracle, though they don't quite believe in them. Sarah meets them at the gate, leads them into the shaded observation area, and gently asks Timothy if he'd like to meet CIR. Timothy shrinks behind his mother's leg, eyes fixed on the ground. CIR, sensing something different, approaches slowly, his head low, his movements soft as dusk. Without words, Timothy holds out a trembling hand. CR touches his nose to Timothy's palm, breathing warm and steady. There's a hush, so deep it feels sacred. Timothy stands frozen. Then, after a long moment, his fingers curl into Sarah's mane. He whispers, soft, barely audible. The word hangs in the air, fragile as a new leaf. His parents gasp, tears streaming down their faces. For the next hour, Timothy does not let go of CER. They walk the fence line together, Timothy humming softly, CER matching his steps. At the end of the visit, Timothy's mother hugs Sarah, unable to speak. He talked, is all she can manage. He talked to the horse. News of Timothy's breakthrough travels quietly through the sanctuary. Staff watch as, over the next weeks, CER seeks out other visitors who carry invisible hurts. War veterans, grieving parents, anxious teenagers. Sometimes all he does is stand close, breathing in time with them. Sometimes he leads them through the pasture, teaching with silence, with trust. Sarah witnesses all of it, her notebook filling with stories that don't fit in any scientific journal. She writes about the day CER stopped a frightened gelding from kicking, not by force, but by standing between the rivals and lowering his head in peace. She writes about the moment she caught Marcus, usually stoic, sitting alone with CER at sunset, the two of them lost in silent understanding. The world takes notice. Universities send delegations to learn from the sanctuary's approach, respectful, slow, centered on the animal's autonomy. Children write letters. Donations come in from unexpected places. Other sanctuaries call, asking for advice on how to build programs that prioritize healing over spectacle, compassion over control. Sarah finds herself changed too. She moves through the days with new gentleness, listening more, talking less, letting herself be guided by questions instead of answers. At night, she walks the pastures, stars cold and bright above, and lets herself believe that what CR has taught them might ripple outward, shifting hearts and habits far beyond these hills. One evening, after everyone has gone, Sarah sits with CER by the edge of the range. The horses graze quietly, the land breathing under the touch of a healing wind. She leans into Sarah's shoulder, feeling the steady thrum of life beneath his skin, and whispers, "Thank you for changing everything." Sarah's ear flicks, and for a moment, he leans into her, accepting the gratitude, sharing the weight and the wonder of all they have built together. True intelligence, Sarah realizes, is not in tests or tricks or headlines. It's in the patient act of seeing another's pain, in choosing care over power, in the daily deliberate work of healing. And as the Nevada sky opens above them, wide, wild, and full of possibility, Sarah knows Sarah's legacy will not end here. It will live on in every person and every animal changed by the simple, radical act of kindness. Autumn deepens, painting the Nevada sanctuary in ochre and gold. The grasses that survived the fire now stand tall, waving gently in the cool wind. For the first time in years, Sarah wakes before sunrise not from anxiety, but from quiet anticipation, a readiness for whatever the day brings. She lingers by the window, watching the herd graze in the morning mist. CER stands at the heart of the group, silver dapples bright even beneath a gray sky, a living reminder of all that has changed. The world's attention ebbs and flows. Sometimes the phone rings with new requests, researchers hoping for more data, documentarians eager to capture Sarah's story one more time. Sarah answers kindly, but firmly. Sarah's life is not a show. He's part of a family. She's learned to draw boundaries, to guard what is sacred. She opens the sanctuary gates when it feels right, and closes them when the outside world threatens to take more than it gives. In the quiet hours, Sarah reflects. She thinks about the journey, the clinical routines of San Francisco, her flight into the wild, the days of skepticism, the wall she built around her own heart. She remembers the raw fear of the wildfire, the chaos and triumph of escape, the confusion and hope of watching CER change not only the herd, but every person who dared to pay attention. Through it all, she's learned that leadership is not about control, but presence. That healing arrives in unexpected forms, a colt's gentle nudge, a silent hour in the pasture, the hush that falls when words are finally unnecessary. Some evenings, she walks alone along the burnt edge of the old range, past blackened fence posts now ringed with shoots of green. The land remembers, but it forgives. Sarah stops and breathes, letting the crisp air settle into her bones. She feels the difference in herself, less armored, more open, unafraid of mystery. CER is never far. Sometimes he stands beside her, sharing the view, his body a warm weight against her side. Other times he moves quietly among the herd, tending to Luna, leading the young foals, nudging the anxious or the grieving with wordless comfort. In these moments, Sarah sees him not as a miracle, but as a living answer to questions she once thought unaskable. What does it mean to care? To listen? To serve something beyond your own understanding? At the new research center, scientists work quietly. They've learned, under Sarah's gaze, to be humble, letting observation come before intervention, curiosity before certainty. They document not just Sarah's problem-solving feats, but his patience, his gift for reading pain, the way he brings troubled horses and wounded people back to themselves. One of the younger researchers, a thoughtful woman named Jasmine, writes in her journal, "The most profound intelligence is the courage to be gentle." Marcus, who once prized evidence above all else, now finds himself teaching visiting students to slow down, to match their breathing to the rhythm of the herd. He jokes less, but laughs more. Even Gloria, gruff and skeptical, has softened, often found at dusk leaning against the fence, telling newcomers how CER saved them all, how, in the face of disaster, it was a Mustang who showed them the way. Stories ripple outward. Children who struggle at home write letters to CR. Families bring their loved ones, hoping for a moment of quiet connection. War veterans sit beneath the junipers, letting the horses graze close, finding the words for old wounds only after hours of shared silence. The sanctuary becomes not just a refuge, but a place of pilgrimage, a community forged by kindness and trust. Sarah knows Sir's story will move on, far beyond the sanctuary's borders. She feels a responsibility, not to the fame or the science, but to the lesson itself. One morning, as golden light floods the pasture, she stands before a group of visitors, her voice steady but soft. When I first came here, I thought I'd left miracles behind in the city. I believed healing was just a matter of medicine and time. But I was wrong. Sometimes what heals us isn't what we can measure, but what we're willing to notice. The quiet gifts, the small acts of care, the courage to stay close when the world feels dangerous. If Sir's story has touched you, maybe you'll share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Sometimes, the world changes when we pay attention. To a wild Mustang, to each other, to the silent calls for help around us. Her words linger, woven into the hush of the Nevada morning. Sarah looks out at the pasture, at CER, at Luna, at the rolling land returned to peace. She feels a kinship to the horses and to the people who have gathered, drawn by a longing for connection, for gentleness, for meaning. As the sanctuary settles into the rhythm of another day, Sarah understands what CER has given them, a new way of seeing, a reminder that true intelligence is not brilliance alone, but the choice to love, to serve, to notice. It's the lesson she hopes will endure long after the last visitor leaves, after the cameras and headlines have faded. And beneath the vast, wild sky, the story continues. A sanctuary at peace, a herd whole and free, a bond unbroken between human and horse, and the promise that, in paying attention, we become part of the miracle ourselves.